Have you ever been told you're too quiet? Well, today we're going to explore 5 really subtle signs that your brain might actually be hardwired for success. And it's all based on this fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea about what intelligence really looks like.
When we picture success, what usually comes to mind? It's something loud, right? The super charismatic leader, the person with the booming voice in the meeting, the one who just commands everyone's attention. It's all about that big, confident, extroverted energy.
But what if the most powerful traits aren't the loudest ones at all? If you've ever felt like you're too quiet or maybe too reserved, then this is for you. We're about to unpack the psychology that suggests those very qualities might be a sign that your brain is just operating on a whole other level. So, first things first, let's just dismantle this common idea, the myth of loud success. We're kind of conditioned to think that the most vocal person in the room is the most competent one. But the science, it suggests we might have that completely backward. Yeah, psychology actually points to the idea that being reserved isn't a lack of something. It's the presence of a really sophisticated internal processing system. It's not about being shy. It's about your brain being busy with things that are way more important than just making noise. So, what does this quiet strength actually look like in the real world? How does it show up? We're going to break down 5 specific signs. And as we go, see how many of these feel, well, familiar.
Okay, sign number 1 is something I think is incredibly powerful. It's simply the pause. And no, this isn't about hesitation or being uncertain. It's a deliberate, almost strategic moment of silence before you speak or act.
The science behind this is actually called cognitive inhibition. It's that tiny critical gap where the logical reasoning part of your brain kind of steps in and says, whoa, hold on a sec, overriding a purely emotional or knee-jerk reaction. It's the huge difference between reacting and responding. All right, sign number 2 is selective organization. And this one might hit a little close to home for some of you. It's the idea that you're not actually disorganized, you just have a super efficient system for prioritizing where your mental energy goes. So maybe your desk looks like a total disaster zone, but inside your head, your ideas are perfectly structured. You instinctively pour your energy into organizing what really matters, the concepts, the strategy, the big picture, and you just let the superficial stuff go. It's peak mental efficiency, really. The third sign is more of a mental habit, thinking in what-ifs. This is when your brain is just constantly running simulations in the background, exploring all these alternative paths and possibilities that other people might not even think to consider. There is a psychological term for this. It's called counterfactual thinking, and it's a seriously sophisticated cognitive tool. By mentally playing out all these different scenarios, you get to test ideas without any real-world risk. And, this is the key, you can predict consequences that might completely blindside everybody else. The process is actually pretty straightforward. First, you imagine an alternative, right? What if we did X instead of Y? Then you project the most likely outcome. And finally, you learn from that little mental simulation and tweak your real-world strategy. It's like having a mental chessboard where you're always thinking 3 moves ahead. Okay, sign number 4, a high tolerance for or even a preference for solitude. In a world that's all about constant connection, choosing to be alone is so often misunderstood. But for a brain that's wired for success, it's not a social failure, it's a cognitive necessity. I just love this idea. It's not about escaping people. It's about entering a different, deeper mode of thought. So taking those long walks alone, or just sitting in silence for a bit, that isn't empty time. That is when your brain gets to do its most important work, connecting ideas, finding creative solutions, and having those genuine aha moments. And finally, that brings us to sign number 5, the ability to explain really complex ideas in a simple way. This is so often mistaken for a lack of knowledge, but honestly, it is the absolute hallmark of true mastery. I mean, think about it. To explain something simply, you have to boil it down to its absolute core. That forces your brain to create these incredibly clear logical structures. Anyone can hide behind fancy jargon. That can actually mask a shaky understanding. But simplicity? That shows deep confidence and clarity. So when we bring all of this together, we land on a really powerful new way of looking at things. Quiet isn't passivity. It's controlled, focused energy. So we've seen these 5 signs, right? The pause. That's all about cognitive control.
Selective organization is mental efficiency. Thinking in what ifs gives you strategic foresight. That high tolerance for solitude is for deep processing. And explaining ideas simply, that's true mastery. All of these traits, they all point to the exact same thing. The restraint you might show, that quiet way you operate, that's not a weakness. It's actually a powerful indicator of deep confidence and some serious cognitive strength. And I want to leave you as a thought that just captures this whole idea perfectly. Real intelligence and real strength, it doesn't need to shout to be heard. It's calm, it's focused, and it is controlled. So, as we wrap this up, I want you to ask yourself this question. Looking back at these 5 signs, what quiet strength in yourself, or maybe in others around you, have you been completely underestimating? The answer to that, it might just change how you see everything.